Welcome to this Talks at Google virtual event. I'm Asia Brown, Program Manager on the Product Inclusion and Equity team at Google. And I'm so excited to introduce today's guest, Stephanie Harrison. Stephanie Harrison is the creator of the New Happy philosophy. Her work has been featured in publications such as CNBC, Fast Company, Forbes, and Harvard Business Review. She is the founder of the New Happy, a company helping individuals, companies, and communities apply this philosophy in their lives. The New Happy's art, newsletter, podcasts, and programs reach millions of people around the world every month. Stephanie has a master's degree in positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania. Previously, she was the director of learning at Thrive Global. Stephanie Harrison, it is my pleasure to welcome you to Google today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so happy for you to be here today. And I must say, your book, reading this book has truly inspired me and has gotten me so excited to just positively impact the world in my day-to-day life. So thank you for creating this book for all of us.
Oh, that means the world to me. I'm so grateful that you found some value in it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so let's get started. So tell us about your journey in writing this book. What got you started? How long did it take to write it? I know you have a master in positive psychology. Like, what is positive psychology?
Great question. I didn't know the answer to that question either when I first started conceptualizing this idea for a book. I often think that my journey to studying happiness really began with my own personal unhappiness, with struggling to figure out what it was that I should do with my life and how I should treat myself and how I should make certain decisions. And when I was in my early 20s, I was living a life where I had sort of tried to go through and check off all of the boxes of the things that you were supposed to do with your life in order to be happy. But none of them were working. And in fact, they were making me more unhappy. And I couldn't figure out why, because I was doing all the things I was supposed to do. And it was in those moments that I started to realize that maybe I had been told a series of lies about happiness, or I had been taught all of the wrong lessons. And ultimately, when I found out that there was a field of study called positive psychology, which is basically the scientific study of well-being and happiness, I realized that I had to get myself there as quickly as I possibly could so that I could start to investigate these questions from an empirical perspective.
That is amazing and truly inspiring. I'm like, I need to sign up for a positive psychology class or course or degree because
highly recommend.
Yeah. Like all the concepts you talked about in this book, are woven in the wellness space. Like I definitely take the time to study wellness, but I love that you talk about the difference between old happy versus new happy. For those who have not read the book, would you like to, or could you define the difference between old happy and new happy for us?
Yeah. So old happy is my term for society's definition of happiness and the culture we've created surrounding it, and then the systems and institutions that enforce it. And old happy really comes from three societal forces of capitalism, individualism, and domination. And these forces teach us what to value, what's important, how we should live our lives, how we should treat each other. And we become conditioned into these values, and then we live our lives in accordance with them, and without knowing it, end up perpetuating them as well. And that's how these systems and beliefs end up persisting. And so one of the things that I think is really interesting about old happy is that when you have this new lens on looking at well-being and happiness from this perspective, you can see that a lot of the content and messages out there in the wellness or well-being space are actually perpetuating old happy in different ways, right? Because the way we talk about wellness, it's all about you, right? It's all about what you want and your health and your well-being. We never talk about the relational element of it, or how being a part of a community is an essential part of happiness and well-being. It's always very individualistically focused. And so I'm trying to apply this lens of, I suppose, criticism to consider the ways in which we are talking and pursuing happiness and trying to argue for a new way forward. And that new way forward is what I call new happy. And essentially, I argue that if you want to be happy, you need to be who you are and then use it to help other people. And you have to do both. You can't just do one or the other, it has to be intertwined.
That is so beautiful. I love that. I mean, there was so much wisdom woven throughout the book. I just noticed myself taking notes. I was like, all right, I'm going to write a book, just taking notes on
I
your
can't
book.
wait.
And I love that you talked about self-actualization.
Mm.
And I think the other concept was self and transcend.
Transcendence, yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
self-transcendence. I love those two because it truly forces you to look inward. And it's
Yeah.
like, what gift do I have? And I think, often we see these celebrities, on TV and we're like, they're so gifted and so talented. And I love how the book perpetuated this concept of like, we all have gifts and talents and knowledge and wisdom that can positively impact the world and help
Mhm.
someone. And, someone's looking at you like, how did you get there? Can you help me? And you're looking at the next person. So I love
Mhm.
this like cycle of like positivity and happiness flowing through. So
Oh, thank you.
thank you. Can you provide examples of how individuals can apply the principles of the new happy in their daily lives?
Yeah. I think there's a couple of different tools that I recommend, and I would say you can jump in and start where feels most comfortable or exciting for you. The first step in many ways is really starting to unwind old happy's influence on your life, because in many ways we've been brainwashed by these beliefs and we have to learn how to untangle them from our real selves, the parts of ourselves that know who we are and what we want, and we know that we're connected to other people. So the first step in many ways is to start to bring our attention to the ways in which old happy is affecting us. Then what I recommend is starting to discover who you are at your core, your true self. And as you mentioned, I argue that each person possesses three different types of gifts. There's your humanity, which is who you are as a person, your wisdom, which is what you know based on your life experiences, and the third is your talent, which is what you can do. And all of us have these gifts within us, and we can further cultivate and draw them out and strengthen them and then start sharing them with other people. And as we do that, we're not just helping ourselves, we're helping others at the same time. And so we're creating these opportunities for happiness for you and happiness for me simultaneously. And I think that, to me, that has been the most important discovery of my own life, that happiness isn't something that's walled off for one person. We can create happiness for ourselves and others simultaneously. And the more that we can integrate that into our daily lives, the more joy that we can experience and create. And I think that one of the easiest ways to do this, if you're like, hey, I don't know what my gifts are, that seems like a lot of work, I don't know how to get started, just go out and do something kind and loving for somebody. And then watch how it affects you. Watch how it makes you feel lighter, more energized, more connected. And then try and repeat that as often as you can. And you'll start to see that's what new happy really is in action. It's those moments of creating happiness for self and others simultaneously.
I love that. And I think too, it's like I liked in the book how you talked about I think you talked about like the selfishness
Mm.
or something about like giving and helping people because often it's like I'm so selfless, I'm so helpful, I always help people, but in turn it's helping you as well. It's making you
Yeah.
feel good, it's making you feel knowledgeable and just useful. And so I love that we can kind of change the narrative on helping and like it can be selfish, but it's mutually beneficial. So it's
Yeah.
everyone wins.
Exactly, and it's like the idea of selfish or selfless just feels so antiquated to me. Like, can we just retire that? It only works if we see ourselves as separate from others, which is that core individualistic belief. And so if it doesn't have to be either or, it can be both. We can experience both of us benefiting at the same time. And in the same way, like if I invest in my health and well-being, it equips me to be a better helper and to be able to be there for you. And that's because we're not separate from one another. We're deeply connected. And as I benefit myself, I benefit you. And as I benefit you, I benefit myself. And I think that so many I think when people hear this philosophy for the first time, they get a little nervous and scared that I'm trying to advocate for something like people pleasing or denying one's needs. And hopefully that's very clear in the book that that's not the case, because when you are choosing to help somebody, you're doing it from a place of self-determination, of saying, I'm doing this because I want to and I choose to because I know it's going to make me feel good and others feel good at the same time. You're not doing it to try and control people or try and coerce a specific outcome the way you would be with people pleasing. And it's that intention behind it that makes all of the difference for your well-being.
Yes, I love that. Intention is everything. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. In another interview you had, you were asked about the difference between joy and happiness. And I loved your response. And so I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing the difference between the two in this conversation here.
Yeah, so hopefully I can remember what I said. But I think that you know, my understanding of joy comes from the work of George Vaillant, who was a pioneering social scientist who was one of the leaders of the Harvard Grant Study, which is the longest running study on adult men. I think it's been running since the 30s, and they've essentially done this incredible longevity study. And he has written a beautiful book about some of the self transcendent emotions. And he says that joy is connection, and it can be in the form of connecting with yourself and connecting with others and connecting with the broader world around you and connecting with a spiritual source or a piece of artwork or a physically transcendent experience. And it's that moment of recognition that you're not alone anymore. You're deeply connected to somebody. And I think that we in our culture have this idea of happiness that's grounded in material acquisition and in performance and in achievement and in the level of kind of satisfaction that you have with your life, whether it measures up to your mental perception of it. And the more that we can shift, I believe, to these recognitions of finding more joy and creating more joy, paradoxically, I think the happier we'll become.
That is such a motivating mindset to have. I know, like, to your point about us living in an individualistic society, I think it can feel lonely because you're going after your dreams on your own. Everyone
Yeah.
talks about entrepreneurship being very lonely, and that concept of helping people and,
Mhm.
just using your gifts to positively impact the world, I feel like alleviates that feeling of loneliness because
Exactly.
you're meant to interact with people and engage.
Yeah, I've been running my company for about 4 years now, and it's been a solo company. I do, I do it for myself for the most part, and I never feel lonely because I'm always connecting with people and I'm always having these experiences where they tell me what they're struggling with, and then I can find a way to help them and support them. And I can create work that makes a difference for people, and that fills me up and allows me to keep going. And, you know, one of the things I think is really fascinating is that I've gotten a lot of messages from people who said, like, oh, this book meant a lot to me. I'm so grateful. And I want to tell them, and I do tell them, like, you mean a lot to me. It's because of your comments and your support and your encouragement that I was able to keep going through the difficult times of my life and to persist and to be able to make this work. It wasn't something I did in a vacuum. It was, even though like I might have appeared to be alone, I was really being shaped at every single moment by thousands of people who were being generous enough to share their thoughts and their feedback and their kind words with me. And that's what made it all possible. And so the whole idea that anyone does anything alone is just such an absolute fiction. And the more that we can leave that behind, again, the happier we're going to be.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful reminder. Speaking of solo journey, I'm going on a solo trip and I'm really excited to
Wow.
Asia. And it's a month-long trip. Really, really excited.
Incredible.
And it's, I use solo trips as just a form of like self-discovery and,
Mm.
just interacting with people. Um, how I know solo trips are pretty popular these days, but how can someone who may not have vacation time and is like deep in the work keep this top of mind? Because I know you mentioned using your humanity gift and your daily work life. And I think often it's a little easier when you're on a solo trip or you're traveling or you're on vacation to just be like, yes, I'm going to interact with people and being loving and caring. But like when you are just you know, in this world of people, quickly moving from task to task, how do you suggest people pause and think about the meaning behind each action that they have?
It's such a beautiful and important question. Um, and, whenever I hear questions like that, one place my mind always goes to is like imagining a world where people did that. Like imagining a workplace where everyone just took an extra 2 minutes to use their humanity gifts in their workplaces or on the street or in the subway or whatever it is. And instantly I think, okay, that would be a better world. So we should all probably try and figure out a way to do it. And I'm going to tell you an example that you just showed me before we dialed into this call. You took a moment to tell me something really kind, and you didn't have to do that, but you shared it with me because you wanted to, I presume, express your humanity gifts to me. And then that made me happy, and it made me feel supported and loved and cared for. And now hopefully I can go out and do the same for other people. And so I think that the way to think about this is just like you did in that moment, you have the power to create a ripple effect in the world around you. I know that when these moments happen to me, and when something beautiful or someone kind speaks to me, I feel much more motivated and inspired to go out and do the same. And that's been proven by studies. Kindness is contagious. And so you have the power to start that ripple for people and to start catalyzing these positive experiences. And one of the most fascinating findings that I came across in my research was the fact that scientists who've studied warring versus peaceful societies have found that the more peaceful a society is, the more moments, little moments of love like that they share, the more uses of their humanity gifts. So all it takes is saying, if I have 60 seconds to express love and kindness and compassion and empathy to somebody, how could I do it right now? And I guarantee you will walk away feeling better, and you will also know that you've started to kickstart a ripple effect in the world.
What a great reminder. And thank you for that feedback. I am happy that it made you happy. And that's, yeah, such a great reminder too. And it's funny because someone texted me before we hopped on this call and, shared their gratitude for me. So
Oh,
clearly,
it literally works.
point proven right here. You're seeing it live, folks. Um, I mean, this is such a beautiful concept and it just makes you so warm and fuzzy inside. And I'm like, how can anyone feel negative after hearing your voice? And, I listened to the audiobook and also read the book, but like after you truly grasp and dissect these concepts, it's just like you feel excited to tackle the world. And with that being said, have you received any criticism at all about this book?
Yeah, I think there's always going to be criticism, right? It makes me feel good that you feel that way. So thank you. I think I think some people have potentially are afraid of moving into like a new world where we're not held by those old happy constraints anymore. I think that there are likely people who feel threatened by that because it means recognizing that our old systems are not working and that we should be completely rebuilding them in order to support the well-being of everybody around the world. Um, but to be honest, I have mostly gotten very kind feedback, including from people that I didn't necessarily expect, like, retired CEOs who I thought potentially, like, maybe this was me being judgmental and I shouldn't have done it, who I didn't think would necessarily be into these ideas, being really excited about it and saying, hey, this reflected my experience. People from all different careers and all walks of life. And I think that my hope with this book was to put words to something we all know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we all know that it's good to love and to use who we are to help other people. But I had never read it in a book, and no one ever told me how to do it, and no one ever said this is the way that will help you. And so I always just have hope that it would strike that deep knowing within people in a way that would help them to see, like, this is a path forward that could be better for me than the one that I was put on without my consent.
Yeah, wow. Absolutely. I love that it's having impact on, in areas that you had no idea, and you just sharing your gift. I think that's a beautiful thing about gifts too. It's just like you're doing you. You're like, okay, this is who I am.
Yeah.
This is the gift I have to the world, and you're just like doing it like heads down. And people are my dad always says people are always watching, and so I
Wow.
love that you were able to positively impact, former CEOs who you
Mm.
didn't think would be your target audience. And I'm
Yeah,
like, wow,
yeah.
okay.
It was so motivating, like hearing that. And I love what your dad says, because if I think about, there are people who I admire from afar, and again, this is a mistake that I'm realizing I need to rectify after this call, but I need to go reach out to them and tell them that I've admired them from afar, because I have the power to make them feel better today, and I should go do that. And people tend not to be very good at telling people when they see somebody's gifts in action. And I think that's another change I would love for us to spark. Like, if I see you being using your humanity gifts, I should tell you, because that gives you a lot of positive reinforcement, and also says, "Hey, this is a gift that I might not have known that I had, but I've been taking it for granted, or I haven't perhaps devoted my energy towards cultivating it. And this is a source of happiness for me that has previously gone unnoticed." So the more that we can start to reflect those gifts back to people and show them, the more opportunities I think there are to share them.
Oh my gosh. This is a beautiful way to start the
Oh,
day.
me too.
Um, so I know we talk about self-actualization and self-transcendence. For those who don't know the definition of those two, would you mind defining those?
Yeah, of course. Self actualization is kind of what we think about with the common, social media internet term of like, be your best self, like, becoming all you can be, fulfilling your potential. And self transcendence is about going beyond yourself, devoting yourself to a greater purpose, to a cause, to another person, to experiencing, as I mentioned, like spiritual transcendence, artistic transcendence, physical, whatever it is. But it's not about you, it's about going beyond you.
Thank you for defining those. And I want to ask, I feel like I can't hop off this call without asking. If someone were to ask you who you are and what gift you bring to the world, how would you answer that?
Oh my gosh. I would say that I think that probably my greatest gifts are that I'm sensitive, which I used to think was a weakness, not anymore. Um, I'm sensitive, and I have a lot of compassion. I'm comfortable sitting with people who are struggling, and I want to be there for them, and I want to alleviate suffering. Um, I would say my wisdom comes from my academic learning and research, and then also the practice I've had with trying to communicate these ideas in ways that make them not like dusty academic textbooks, but trying to make them more fun and appealing for people. And I would say, I guess um, maybe one of my talents is in communicating those concepts, or through, the artwork that I make, or through the written page, or through communicating through speaking. Those would be probably the ones that I draw upon in my daily life.
I love those. That's great. And I love that. I mean, it's important for you to know what they were. And I know we did not rehearse that question. So I love that you're able to answer on the fly. So thank you.
No, thank you. Well, what are your gifts? I want to hear yours.
Yeah, I would say I have a gift of being, or I have a gift of making people feel seen.
Mm,
I'm not
very
sure if
true.
you, yeah, I'm not sure if you're familiar with human design theory.
A little bit, yeah.
Yes, and so I'm a reflector, and so
Mm,
basically we reflect back the energy people bring. And so I think when I was a kid, I guess I saw those things growing up, but
mhm,
the older you get, you understand things and read more, and you're like, okay, I have the language to understand what this is.
mhm.
And so, they say we're chameleons, we're very adaptable, which are strengths. Some people are like, oh, if you're a chameleon, they're like, what is your personality like? And so I think I have been able to understand being a reflector and understand my own energy and understand when other people's energies impact me,
Mm,
and turn it into a gift that I'm giving to someone of like,
mm,
I could see something before they may be able to see it in
yeah.
themselves. And so to your point of sharing kindness or like a positive, positive words or positive feelings with them, or, I try and speak up if I notice something that I don't feel like they notice that
Mm,
maybe, like maybe if I can say something that will help them, like, hey, I noticed, you keep mentioning this one thing and it's kind of pushing you in the wrong direction. Like, let's, revert to the right direction. So I'm trying to lean more into this knowledge and
yeah.
this skill and positively impact the world through that. But it's a newer finding. So I'm still learning how to
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I think we're going to do one more question. So, are there any initiatives or projects on the horizon that you are particularly excited about?
Mm, I think that my main project now is to try and get this message out there to people, because, we've talked a lot about individual happiness, like how you can be happy in this conversation. But as you know from reading the book, the real promise of this idea is that it will also be what helps us to create a happier world for everybody. Because if we stop pursuing our self interested, misguided attempts at happiness and start reorienting ourselves towards our loving, altruistic, compassionate, true sources of happiness, what we'll be doing is not only doing that for ourselves, but also creating happiness for other people. And so the more that I can help people to recognize that there is a path forward to making the world better and being happy at the same time. The two are not at odds. The sooner we'll be able to hopefully fix the sources of unhappiness in our world and create a space where everyone can have what they deserve in order to live a good and a meaningful life. So for me, the goal has always been helping people to see that they're not only are they not alone, but that they're so deeply connected to everybody that their actions have this profound impact and have the power to really change the world for the better. And so that's always kind of my North Star, and just trying to help share that as best I can.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. All of what you've shared is such a beautiful way for us to just go out into the world and use our gifts to positively impact the world. So thank you again for writing this book. Thank you again for joining us at Talks at Google. And thank you for sharing your light with me and to the world.
Thank you. And right back at you. I'm so grateful for you and for such a beautiful conversation. Thank you.